Hi everybody, Matt Lawton here. This is the Astrological Winds channel. I'm going to take a look at the astrological weather report for the week of April 21st through the 27th. And really, it's one big package this week. We have a new moon in Taurus, right? But all week long, we have Mars opposite Pluto and Venus still conjunct Saturn, which is Venus, the ruler of the new moon. And that new moon is in a fixed cardinal, or in a cardinal, I'm sorry, a cardinal T square with the Mars Pluto opposition. So our whole week is just this package. There's really nothing else going on, but that's quite a package all together, and working all together for sure. So just a little business first. The Astrological Winds channel is a free video blog that's on YouTube. If you like what you see, I'd really like you to become a follower if you have a YouTube account. And don't forget to turn on your notifications. And that's important because you won't know when the blog is up. It's great being a follower, but if you don't know the blog's up, then you're not going to probably check it out. So remember to do that. Also, it is available on podcasts still. It was a podcast for many years before it was a YouTube channel the last 6 or 7 years. So just look it up, Astrological Wings channel, and you'll find it out there on podcasts too. And if you have an Instagram page and you'd like to follow Astrological Wings channel on Instagram, that's also a place where I post the link to the YouTube blog every week, so it'll show up in your newsreel. The other place to always find it is on my website, www.astrologicalwinds.com. And there's a little blog tab. Not only has this week's blog, it has blogs from the past 3 months at least. It has the annual blog, it has the monthly. So if you need to refer back to them, it's there. And remember, this is a free service. I would really love if you pass the link along to somebody else when you're done. Even if you've done that before, please do it again. And a lot of people believe in astrology these days, over 50% of the world. So it's not being a risky thing doing that, and it really helps me out. It's really the way I get the blog to grow. I really don't push it in any other way. I really like it to grow just from person to person, mouth to mouth, like that. If you'd like to give a donation to the blog, that's always possible too. The other great way to support me is I am a professional astrologer. Check out the website for my services. I'll go into more detail about that at the end. There's a contact for me. There's also a contact on the website. So anyway, let's get into this. So Wednesday is actually the day that the sun will actually lock into the exact um, T square with Mars and Pluto. So Mars and Pluto, they're basically in opposition all week. Okay. And this Venus conjunct Saturn, how are you guys doing with that? I've been talking about it for 2 or 3 weeks now, because Venus, when it was retrograde and slowing down, getting near the end of the cycle, is when it conjuncted Saturn. And then it went to a standstill and now is slowly going forward again. So it has been conjunct, Venus has been conjunct Saturn for like 3-4 weeks now, right? And that's the ruler of this new moon. So that is like, really, like, this whole week is just dominated by this energy. So, just to go over this theme though, first is, the Venus Saturn, once again, it's another week of that same theme of looking at relationships in a very sober, serious way. Every relationship that you have, most likely, or most of them, and really deciding which ones are reliable and stable enough that you want to continue to put energy into them. And the ones that are unstable, unreliable, overly emotional, those are the ones that you're probably sitting there going, it's time to move forward. That I can't allow myself to be continued to be sucked into this kind of energy with these people. So it's a time where we're really discerning which relationships are important to us, which ones are not, and the ones we want to really establish long-term structure and reliability with. And like I've said the last 3 weeks, many times this favors business relationships more than any others, agreements that we can hammer out, non-emotional type stuff, not where we're getting into something really deep. Saturn wants to, really wants to avoid that really heavy emotional stuff. So, so that's really the place. But also, any relationship that does start now, whether it's business, romantic, or any type, this is a conjunction. So it's being seeded with very strong, reliable energy. It's being, you know, like like down to earth, grounded, strong, and it has a chance at having, being a long term type of relationship. But really, we are looking at our relationships and trying to decide which ones are really practical for us still, and which ones where the emotional expression is just too much and it's too jagged. So that's been the theme. And remember, this has also gone along with what? The whole economy crashing, which, I, basically said when Venus went retrograde a couple months ago, there was a real good chance that was going to happen, right? And with Saturn there, this is showing, yes, our resources are very restricted right now, that we have to be conservative and frugal with our money and make wise decisions. Don't overindulge in things that we don't need now. And this also indicates that, once again, the relationships that we are going to struggle with are the ones that, with people that are, that are from the past that we know well, and we're just having a really hard time with where they're at emotionally versus where we're at, and we're just ready to move on from that. So that, and remember, this is the ruler of this new moon too, this Venus. So then we have the Mars Pluto opposition going on all week. So Mars, it finally went back into Leo last week, right? It had been since January 7th that it had been out of Leo, and during that whole retrograde phase. And so goes back into Leo. But remember, Pluto is now at the beginning of Aquarius. So that means, Leo and Aquarius are one axis together, your creativity axis. So they're in opposition. So that means Mars is going to be opposite Pluto all this week. And so they're two of the most intense, troublesome planets. The traditional astrologers found very little that they liked about Mars. They really considered Mars a very troublesome energy. And Pluto, we know, is, if you know astrology, is a big transformational planet. It's one of the outer planets. It's working on our collective subconscious together, and it steers a lot of things in society that are like abstract type movements to want to regenerate, to take away old forms that are no longer useful, that are crumbling apart, that are in decay and decadence and dilapidation, and change them irrevocably into something else, change the whole structure and form of things, taking actions to do that thing. So it's an opposition, you guys. Opposition is an aspect of the greatest stress. It's like, two sides pulling away. And so there's this great stress that's in the middle. That's why everything's in red again. These T squares, they're red. They're like, okay, caution, be careful here. There's a lot of intense energy racked up on this. And so it's Mars, this is our actions. This is what we're doing. This is our motivations, and so we have to be really aware. This is about learning to be aware of how our actions affect others and the environment around us. Our power, we all have power. When we move energy, when we're acting, it puts out waves of energy, and Mars opposite Pluto can be very unaware of the waves of energy that it's putting out. It can have very profound effects on the environment and those around us. And really, what Mars and Pluto want to do is take action on bringing change in, take action on bringing transformation in. they can do this in a very egotistical, ruthless, even violent ways. It's like literally this is like opposition, so it gets us in power struggles. Those who are pushing change will meet great resistance. Severe power struggles break out. People can get very underhanded, very ruthless with each other in their control trip games. It's all about trying to control and subjugation issues. At times finding yourself the victim, at times being the perpetrator. People on power trips acting like a dictator, no matter where their power is, whether it's only over one other person or their family or some of their friends, their community, or a whole nation, a whole world, a whole society, right? Just like power tripping, acting like dictators. Very high energy here, very motivated, very enduring energy. Will keep going and going, going like the Energizer Bunny in the battery commercial. Is going to keep going and going and going and going, so it can achieve a lot. You can get a lot of things done, and Pluto can give this incredible focus too, and it can really move a lot of energy, but you will get resistance. And when you get resistance, it can really build the tension up, and that tension, Mars and Pluto together, it can be explosive. It can be like a bomb going off. It can be very violent energy, turmoil, churning energy. Um, this basically indicates there can be great conflict in the world this week. There can be great acts of violence. That can be very extreme. That can be on the individual level. That can be nations acting against each other. And we know in the United States right now, there's a lot of conflict going on internally. Um, with people on two sides of belief systems, courts versus executive, all kinds of like tension going on, right? This is going to be a really interesting week to see how this plays out in the United States. It's going to be like, whoa. And then, like, by Wednesday, the sun has its exact square to Pluto. And remember, it exactly squared Mars last Sunday. So, literally, this means this T square is active all week. The sun is going to be sitting in the middle of this. And then by Saturday, we'll get to the exact conjunction with the moon. So that's a new moon, right? New moon is the sun conjunct the moon. And that will be actually at 8 degrees of Taurus, exactly. And that's on Sunday, actually, not Saturday. And so it's forming what we call a fixed T square in this case, because it is in Taurus and Aquarius and Leo. So we have three fixed signs. So, that's like T squares. They're always in the same element, but they're each pulling that element in a different direction. So, what you want to, first thing you want to do in your chart is look to where 8 degrees of Taurus is in your chart, and whatever house that falls into, that's where it's a seeding time. Remember, new moons are always about beginnings. Conjunctions are always about beginnings. So it's a time we can seed things. So if say it's in your 11th house, right? Then it's going to be seeding things with new groups or new goals that you may have, or new friends, making or doing different new things with your friends. So really, and then remember, any planet that you have around 7, 8, or 9 degrees is going to be most likely aspecting that new moon. So that's going to change that pure flavor too. It's going to give that planet's going to give it some different flavors that are going on. So the new moon in Taurus, once again, it's looking for something stable and reliable. It wants to know that things are secure, that when it opens up the cupboard in the kitchen or the refrigerator, that there's going to be food there. That our material needs, that our most basic, it's the first earth sign, right? And it's a fixed earth sign. fixed earth. It wants to make sure that our material needs, earth, are always being met. Fixed. Wants reliability, right? Wants to know that we will survive, that we will always have the minimal needs at least being met for us, you know? Um, so that's, so because of that, Taurus is very resistant to change, right? It really is comfortable with tradition, with family, with patriotism, with heritage, with knowing the things that will work right. Taurus has a very slow and steady approach. It's very reliable. It gets the job done well, but not quickly, right? And Taurus really wants to see practical results in the real world by what it's doing, right? It wants all five senses to be able to be indulged on the physical earth plane. That is how it gets comfort. That's how it knows that its needs are being met. And the thing is, Taurus resists change then. It's very stubborn, right? But the problem with Taurus is many times we're using things to cover up our emotional needs. And so the big challenge is for Taurus energy is to always find the right um, balance between having our emotional needs met and our material needs met. If we go too far to the material side, which Taurus can do, we can really overindulge. We can get really unhealthy. We can get unhealthy habits, right? Put on a lot of weight or whatever it may be, using food, using things that, for comfort to keep the deeper emotions away. And that's the reason we resist change too when things are very Taurian, because change is what actually introduces new emotions in. And that's what can upset that apple cart. So, especially when times are difficult, like right now, when we feel we have to be frugal. And that's one thing that's really another great gift of Taurus is to, handling money and assets. So, like when things are tough, you can keep the rhythm going. You can be frugal and conservative and know how to use your assets well. There's a lot of wisdom there, and setting up a rhythm like that, even connecting, but that, allowing some of that emotion in allows changes to occur, and those changes are what will help you find the emotional satisfaction that you may be missing and you're trying to replace with these material things. So it's a very much like a paradox, right? Because we're trying to resist the change to feel that stability, but at the same time, in order to find emotional stability, we need to let the change in. So it's like one of those Ouroboros things with Taurus. It's a self-feeding. It's, we're eating our own tail or chasing our own tail, so to speak, many times with that energy. But Taurus really is a very affectionate sign. It really wants to take care of its loved ones, which is always its family first. But it will expand that tent if it feels like its family's needs are being met. Taurus will get very stressed out if its needs and its loved ones' needs are not being met. And it can slowly build up into an angry energy and can really explode if those needs aren't getting met. But it has a very patient grounding effect. It usually is not willing to take risks. Like I said, it really is good at managing money and things like that, and resources and knowing how to do that. The other thing is with the Taurus, the moon, it's the female side of Taurian energy, and in the moon there, and that can help us. Taurus is also about the rhythms of the earth. It's the first earth sign, and the rhythms of the earth are fixed, right? Like every year spring comes and summer comes and fall and winter come at the same time. Every year, the trees and plants grow and then they decay and they come back. So like Taurus, when it's in an emotional balance, can be very connected to the rhythms of the earth and be very aware of them. And that, and it's very like an agricultural sign, like I talked about that last week. It's the springtime in the northern hemisphere and the harvest time in the southern hemisphere. So here, like I said, so Taurus is all about that stuff about not changing, right? And then we put it in a T square with Mars and Pluto, whose only interest together is changing things, transforming things, and actually being very insensitive to the way they do that. So this is very challenging for the Taurus energy that wants reliability. This is where the Taurus energy can get very angry with others and end up getting into some really serious disputes with authorities or who we perceive as authority in one case, or just close loved ones too, because of the Taurus energy. Just like, having a really hard time with the behavior that they're showing and just wanting to like, really can like just feel really angry and irritated by that energy. A lot of this is because the Mars Pluto, we're watching our world transform around us. We're watching a lot of things break down around us. And it's really, really difficult. It's a very stressful thing, to see that, and the world is testing us right now. And so it's very, very difficult. And, the thing with Mars and Pluto, that like I said, there's an incredible amount of energy here. So one of the things to do when you're feeling really distressed from this energy is to go and do something physical. There's a lot of energy wrapped up in this, not only the Mars Pluto here, but connecting back to the two lights, the sun and moon. That's us, our personalities, our emotions and stuff. So like one of the best ways when you're feeling really intense, because Pluto can get us really obsessive too, and we might not be able to let things go do something physical, wear yourself out. You just got to really be careful too when you're doing that, because like if you're really upset and angry, you can get very impulsive with your actions and end up hurting yourself. And I'm not saying that if you really have grievances that are true grievances for you that are causing a lot of this distress and anger, that you don't go and let those people know. But there can be a way of letting out some of this energy first so that you don't come on so aggressively, that you don't come on so strongly that, maybe you can even avoid some of the older behavior patterns that this stuff can bring up in our psyche, and become aware of them instead. In fact, the whole key to Mars Pluto is to be conscious of our actions, to slow down and be conscious with our actions, because this energy can really overwhelm us emotionally, and we can be very unclear or narrow in the way we're looking at life and not seeing it properly. And then we can do things that really mess us up. We can make our situations a lot more difficult and make our relationships a lot more difficult, so we have to be able, to be honest about what we are feeling intense about, but not allow those emotions to overwhelm us. And that is really difficult. With Mars and Leo can really wants to go off. It can feel like it's being unfairly attacked. It can be very enraged inside, and not feeling like it's getting the recognition it deserves. It can get very impulsive, and then really end up hurting itself on multiple levels. Just acting out on our urges is the danger of this energy, and you can easily hurt yourself on a lot of levels. The best thing to do actually also, besides the physical thing, is to confront yourself, rather than other people. I can guarantee you, if you get in a confrontational energy, you're going to end up playing victim perpetrator games, and someone could actually get hurt, even physically. If not, you're going to have psychological warfare going on with people using the 7 deadly sins to kind of control each other. Lots of high drama. So, and then the thing is, if you start triggering people who are already belligerent or angry, they can react violently for you. So you got to be really careful with this energy. I mean, I tell people to avoid violent people and places. Watch out for belligerent energy. This because it can really turn into a firestorm where no one can let it go. But if we can be conscious of our actions during this energy, we can see new actions that can be greatly transformative, have a great payoff for us in the future. But we have to be fully aware of everything we're doing. We have to look at every situation in the present and not react to it like the way we've always react to it. Like this, even if it's similar to situations in the past, that we look at it in new eyes, and then, and if we can do that, then we can figure out ways to change and transform it. And then we start to get a payoff. And then we realize, hey, you know what? I can get through hard things. I have the endurance, I have the power. As long as I can discipline my actions, then I can make my way through hard things. I can control some of this compulsive behavior and start to focus my energy, and my actions become much more efficient, much more able to get results without creating chaos around me. That's how we need to work with this energy. Otherwise, it's very dangerous, potent, high energy of confrontation, of possibly violence and transformation that can be like, whoa, like this is intense. So now remember, the Venus is the ruler of this chart, and Venus is still in Pisces up here. So, Venus still can look at things in a compassionate way, even if that means moving away from the people who are causing this energy. As we're discerning this energy up here, who should be in our lives or not, well, the people who are doing this to us are the people we're probably trying to move away from. They're causing this kind of tension and drama in our life, and that's not reliable. But like Venus and Pisces can still do this in a compassionate way. It can realize that, some people, just that's the way they are, and we have to accept that, and that, we can't be as connected to them emotionally as we might like to, because they disrupt our lives too much. But it's okay, that, we can move on from them. We can have this compassion and then find the people who are more stable, who do share our ideals, because Pisces does have ideals, who we can merge with, like Pisces wants to. And, it could be romantic. It doesn't necessarily have to be. Interesting enough, too, what's the open end of the T square? Scorpio. Why is that interesting? Because Mars and Pluto are the two rulers of Scorpio. So this is like really interesting in the sense of like, it's telling us we need to get to the bottom of the truth of what motivates and drives us. And we need to realize what motivates and drives others. That is the key to being able to transform ourselves through dramatically changing times. And then perhaps we can find a new ground floor to build up from with this new moon in Taurus, and build something reliable and stable and rhythmic that will feed us and our loved ones for a long time to come. This is Matt Lawton. This is the Astrological Winds channel. This is a free video blog on YouTube, and you really need to pass the link on for me right now, even if you've done it before. If you'd like to give a donation to the blog, no amount is too small. There's my Venmo at Matthew, 2 T's, hyphen, Lauten, cash, $ Matthew Lawton, Lauten. No amount too small. Even $5 helps. It does cost me some money to actually put the blog out. for you guys. And the best way to help me out, though, is get to my website, www.astrologicalwinds.com. Not only can you find the blogs there and my contact there, when you need a reading or someone else needs a reading, I've been doing readings for over 20 years. I've been professionally trained for 7 years before that, was into astrology for 10 years, even before that. Been doing astrology for 35 years. I would love to do your chart for you, or if someone you know needs their chart done. Predictive work too for your next year, so you know what to expect. Just like I do in a weekly, I do for a yearly for you. Elections, if you're looking for the good timing of things, horary questions, if you have a child, and you'd like to know what's going on in their chart in life, I do them. Relationship charts, all kinds of different chart work. It's all listed on my website, so I'd really like you guys to check that out. I also do a little calendar each week on there, telling some of the holidays of each week. So check the website out, and when you're ready, let me know, and I can work with you financially. If you need to make a couple different payments, whatever it may be. I mean, it's worth an investment in you. This is something, your chart is something that never leaves you your whole life. So if you don't understand it and you're into astrology, you really need to get on that right away. And let me tell you, a computer printout that's 50 pages long is most likely just going to confuse you. Reading your own book the first time, or trying to get a friend who just read a book, it's going to probably add more confusion. You should really get it done by someone who's doing it professionally for a while, myself or someone else even, then to get a better holistic understanding about how all this stuff works together. It's not just a bunch of parts that can be very confusing. Well, thanks again, everybody. That will do it for this week. Now, next week, since we don't have a new moon or full moon and we're going into May, I will also do the May monthly reading with the weekly reading for the 28th through the 4th. And just remember, next week is the week that finally Mars and Mercury at least will be out of their shadow, and things will be really moving forward on that level. Venus will end up going back into Aries, where she doesn't like to be, and hitting Neptune right away. And guess who goes retrograde next week? Pluto. So we'll be talking about that too. All right, this is Matt Lawton. This is the Astrological Winds channel. You're about to turn this link on to somebody else, and I really appreciate that. I will see you all next week.